Late at night, satellite images of the Strait of Hormuz began circulating among shipping analysts. The images showed something unusual: more than 200 oil tankers sitting still, engines off, anchored, waiting. This narrow waterway, just a few dozen miles across, suddenly looked like a parking lot for the global oil economy. And that's because something extraordinary had happened. Iran announced it had effectively taken control of the Strait of Hormuz, the single most important oil shipping route on Earth. If that claim holds, the consequences go far beyond the Middle East, because through this narrow stretch of water flows nearly 20% of the world's oil supply. When tankers stop moving here, the entire global economy starts to feel it. To understand why the Strait of Hormuz matters so much, look at a map. This narrow channel connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. Every day, massive oil tankers leave the ports of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, the United Arab Emirates, and Iran. Their destination? Energy markets around the world: Europe, Asia, North America. The route is simple but unavoidable. If a tanker leaves the Persian Gulf, it must pass through Hormuz. There is no alternative route. That's why energy analysts call the strait the most important choke point in global oil trade. On an average day, roughly 17 to 20 million barrels of oil pass through these waters. That is almost 1/5 of global consumption. If that flow is disrupted, oil prices react instantly, and in the current crisis, markets are already bracing for the possibility that prices could surge toward $120 per barrel or higher. But how could a single country threaten such a critical global artery? The answer lies in geography and military capability. Iran sits directly along the northern coastline of the strait. From that position, its military, particularly the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, has developed a strategy designed specifically to control the area during conflict. Instead of relying on large naval fleets, Iran uses asymmetric warfare: fast attack boats, naval mines, anti-ship missiles positioned along the coastline, and increasingly long-range drones. These systems are designed to make the narrow shipping lanes extremely dangerous. Even a few successful attacks could force insurance companies and shipping firms to halt operations. Because for global shipping companies, risk is everything. If tankers cannot be insured, they do not sail. At the center of the standoff is the response from the United States. American naval forces in the region are among the most powerful in the world. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, surveillance aircraft, all operating under the command of the United States Navy. Reports suggest that U.S. forces have launched a large-scale military effort, sometimes referred to as Operation Epic Fury. The objective is clear: restore freedom of navigation through the strait. But reopening a shipping lane during a military confrontation is far more complicated than it sounds, because even if warships escort oil tankers, the risk from mines or missile attacks remains. Naval mines are especially dangerous. They can sit undetected beneath the surface for months. Clearing them requires specialized ships and slow, careful operations. And during that time, oil shipments remain stuck. This is where the crisis moves beyond geopolitics and into everyday life. Because oil prices don't stay confined to energy markets, they ripple through the entire economy. First comes fuel prices. When crude oil becomes more expensive, gasoline and diesel prices rise almost immediately. Transportation costs increase. Truck companies pay more to move goods, airlines pay more for jet fuel, and those costs eventually appear in the price of everything we buy. But the chain reaction doesn't stop there. One of the most overlooked links in the global economy is fertilizer. Modern agriculture depends heavily on fertilizers made using energy-intensive processes. When oil and natural gas prices rise, fertilizer becomes more expensive. When fertilizer costs increase, farmers reduce usage or raise prices, and that eventually translates into higher food prices worldwide. In other words, an oil crisis that begins in the Persian Gulf can end up affecting the cost of groceries thousands of miles away. Financial markets understand this connection very well. That's why even the threat of disruption in Hormuz can send oil prices soaring. Traders react not just to what is happening today, but to what might happen tomorrow. If tankers remain stuck for days, strategic petroleum reserves may begin to shrink. If they remain stuck for weeks, global supply shortages become likely. And if the closure lasts longer, countries may begin rationing fuel supplies. This is why analysts describe the Strait of Hormuz as a pressure point for the entire world economy. A disruption here doesn't just affect one country, it affects everyone. So, what happens next? There are several possible scenarios. The first is diplomatic pressure. International powers could attempt to negotiate a temporary de-escalation that allows shipping to resume. The second possibility is limited military action. Naval forces might attempt to escort tankers through the strait while neutralizing threats along the coastline. But the most dramatic scenario, the one markets fear most, would involve a wider military escalation. A direct confrontation between Iran and Western forces could transform the strait into an active conflict zone. And in that environment, commercial shipping could remain frozen for weeks. History shows just how dangerous this situation can become. During the tanker war of the 1980s, both Iran and Iraq targeted oil tankers in the Persian Gulf. Dozens of ships were damaged or destroyed, insurance premiums skyrocketed, and global energy markets were shaken. Today, the stakes are even higher. Global oil demand is larger, supply chains are more interconnected, and financial markets react far more quickly to geopolitical shocks. For now, the world is watching one narrow stretch of water, a place where geography, energy, and geopolitics collide. The Strait of Hormuz may look small on a map, but the decisions made there can move global markets overnight. Because when a choke point carrying 1/5 of the world's oil suddenly stops flowing, the impact is felt everywhere, at gas stations, at grocery stores, and in the price of almost everything we buy. The question now is simple. Will the ships start moving again? Or is the world about to learn just how fragile the global energy system really is?